Listeners, in business, we spend so much time talking about what we sell and how we sell it. But rarely do we stop to ask ourselves where we actually stand in the market. We get caught up in the shiny idea of the ideal client avatar, painting them like some perfect friend who always wants what we are offering. But here's the thing, imaginary friends don't buy from you. Real people do. Yeah. And if you're not positioned in their world in a way that makes you unforgettable, you might just be invisible. Listeners, welcome to this interesting conversation on the BizBlend podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today we are going to peel back the curtain on Positioning 101, the most important element of marketing and sales that almost nobody talks about. And my guest knows this inside out, not from theory, but from the trenches, starting with just $200 in Hong Kong, no work visa, and a Google search that changed everything. We'll uncover about that. So, listeners, let me welcome my incredible guest, Rachel Allen. Rachel, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really amped up for this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. That was such a lovely intro. I feel so fancy now. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course, Rachel. And this super, super exciting. Um, okay, Rachel, I know that there's a specific topic that we're going to talk about, but something in the intro really, really interested me, and I believe it will also pique the interest of our listeners as well. You started with just $200 in Hong Kong. You had no work visa, and then a Google search. I mean, if you can throw some light on that, we would love to know.
Sure. I actually went to university for journalism. I really wanted to work for The Economist, and I had studied abroad in Hong Kong. And
Okay.
I came back to the United States to finish my degree, and I graduated into 2008, which was, of course, the economic crisis here.
Mhm.
And no one was hiring anybody. I sent out over 200 resumes and I got 0 responses. And the only job I could get was unpacking boxes at a clothing store, a clothing warehouse actually in the middle of the night. And it was not my dream. So
Mhm.
in my 22-year-old brain, I thought, you know what? I bet if I move to the other side of the world, they'll have jobs. And they do, but as you said, you need a work visa, and I didn't think about that because I was 22 and, just didn't know.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I ended up, in Hong Kong with about $200 in my bank account, and I had to make rent. So I, started Googling how to make money online, which is absolutely ridiculous, but, again, 2008, so a little less ridiculous than it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And, I found this freelance job for something called copywriting, which I had never ever heard of before, and I thought it had to be a scam, because I could not imagine that anybody would pay me to write because that's so fun for me and so natural. But, I was like, "Well, I need the money, so I might as well try," and I gave it a try, and they actually paid me $3.25 for it, which was amazing. And I was completely hooked, and so I, decided to build a business doing just that, and I've been doing that for the past 17 years now.
Whoa. You are a daredevil, Rachel, because in 22, oh my goodness, moving to a new city would was toughest for me. Moving to a new country and that too to a different continent.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
But that's really, really, I mean, I
it
really
sounds
needed some. Uh-huh. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead,
it
Rachel.
sounds excellent in, retrospect, and it was mostly terrifying during, but it makes a really great story afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. And you did this all alone. You figured it out completely on yourself.
I did,
Completely by
yeah.
yourself. Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would love to explore that journey, more details in some other another podcast of ours. But let's get back to the topic here, Rachel. Okay, let's try to understand the myth of the client avatar. Now, this is very interesting. You say that you don't have a client avatar, you have an imaginary friend. So, can you break down what you mean by that and why this mindset can be dangerous for entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So, I realized I was getting frustrated with my clients about 5 years in when they would give me what they
Mhm.
called their client avatar. And I would look at that, and it was usually like a piece of paper, maybe 1 or, maybe 3 pages if they just really got into it. And then I would look at their audience and see a large disconnect. And so I started asking them, like, where did you find this information? How did you come up with this? And mostly it was, well, I imagined who they would probably be in my head. And I'm like, okay, well, did you actually speak to anyone? No. And that's where I got the concept of, look, that's not a client avatar, that's an imaginary friend. And while that can be lovely, that is not going to help you with your sales because that comes completely from inside your own head. There's no real external information in it. So I ended up writing an ebook back in the day called "Kill Your Client Avatar," and people got very, very, sort of, thrown by it.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's my whole point that I was trying to make is, if I'm writing copy, it doesn't matter to me if this person is between the ages of 35 and 50 and they live in a suburb and they like a specific breakfast cereal. That tells me nothing about them. What I need to know
Mhm.
is what do they wake up in the middle of the night worrying about? How do they talk to their best friend about their fears and the things they love? Like that's what you need in a client avatar for it to be useful.
Mm. Real problems. Yeah.
Right, real problems, real messaging, real things that have
Yeah.
happened to them. Because I think people tend to rely on demographics, like what I just said, but you can have 2 people who have very similar demographics and have
Mhm.
completely different psychographics. So, like, my experience will be completely different than someone else who has, I don't know, gone to university and also lived in Hong Kong because we've lived completely different lives.
True. That is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the same approach, applies for sales as well, especially when we do the discovery calls. Uh, More than just trying to throw up the product or service in their face, I think the questions or the conversation has to be on understanding what the real problems are. Exactly what exactly is keeping them awake at night, So
Right.
that is, yeah, I really love that you're challenging such a common piece of marketing advice, and that too in this digital era. It almost sounds like you're saying that most entrepreneurs are actually marketing to a fictional pen pal
Yeah.
rather than a paying customer.
Oh, that's such a good way to describe that. If we're pulling quotes out of this interview, that should be one of them because you phrased that so beautifully. Um, yeah, definitely. And I think that sometimes that happens to coincide with the people
Mhm.
they're selling to, but so often it doesn't. And I can often tell because they're using language that speaks to them, but not
Mhm.
to their customers. And I always pick on coaches, even though I love coaches and I have many clients who are coaches, but they'll say
Mhm.
things like, I help you become your most empowered self. And then what I say back to them, I say, look, has anyone in the history of forever ever woken up at 3 in the morning and thought, oh, if only I could become my most empowered self? Of course not.
Well, it can be a bit, yes.
Yeah.
I now understand. And so let's talk about the kind of a solution here, or maybe the basic approach here. So, how should a business owner actually define their target market? Like, when we didn't have any kind of let's talk about the era before internet or computers. Um, uh, Surveys, door-to-door conversations, going out and talking to your maybe potentially ideal customers. I mean, what exactly the approach here, Rachel?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think all of that you just said, I think if you are absolutely unable to contact anybody that you think might be in your target market, then to think about universal human motivations and sort of and go from there. So think about very baseline motivations. People want to feel safe, they want to feel loved, they want to feel like they belong, they want to feel like they are growing. But the best thing to do is really just if you can talk to even 5 people who might be your client avatar and do, a conversation of at least an hour with them, that will give you so much more than any kind of, even survey or anything because people often answer surveys aspirationally, like who they wish they were. But when you're
Mhm.
talking to these people, you can see their body language, you can, really have a human to human conversation with them, and importantly, you can hear how they talk about things. So
Mhm.
it requires humility, and, it can be vulnerable to ask a stranger like, "Hi, I might wanna sell you something. Could I talk to you about how you might feel about that?" It's a little weird.
Yeah.
But most people, are actually very gracious about it as long as you go in being clear that, like, "Hey, look, I'm not trying to sell you something on this call, but I just need to I wanna hear about what you care about." And, if you can have that kind of conversation, you will eventually start to see patterns and themes across them. And then the other thing I do recommend is if there's any kind of media that caters specifically to your kind of people. So, like, let's say you work with, I don't know, librarians. If there are magazines for them, or if there's
Mhm.
podcasts for them or something, if you can listen to those, you can kind of tap into the conversations they're having, which will give you so much more insight into their psychological state of being.
That's golden, Rachel.
Yeah.
That's golden. But that is so obvious because it's available. Yet, because I come from a sales background, and I'll be very honest that this is something I also never did actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe initially, but in all that hustle and bustle of achieving the targets and numbers, somewhere down the line, I and that's why exactly now, if I could recollect, there were so many discussions where I couldn't even connect in the first 7 or 10 minutes of the call because I actually never had the the I never took the effort to even understand what exactly do they care about.
Right, right. And it may feel like it's something very different from whatever it is you're selling. And, it's possible that perhaps they do just care about different things and you're not a fit for them, which is also useful information. But a
Yeah.
lot of times, something that will seem very disconnected can actually connect directly to what you're doing. So, for instance, a lot of people that I work with, they feel like nobody understands them. And that
Mm,
could be, in their day-to-day life, that could be at their work. A lot of the founders that I work with, I say I work with founders who have impossible dreams and unsolvable problems.
mhm,
And they're surrounded by people who don't quite get it. Like, they want to understand them, but they can't quite get it all the way, and that can be profoundly lonely. And so, while loneliness is not a problem that you think about a marketing strategist solving, it is a huge
mm.
part of what I do.
Mm, makes sense. That really makes sense. And um, why do you think positioning is the single most important, but most overlooked element in marketing and sales? If you can support this with an example, like actually a case study or a success story that you have had.
Sure. So, just to give your listeners an idea of what positioning is, since people don't normally talk about it, positioning
Mhm,
is the story of who you are and why anyone cares. And most people come at marketing and sales a little further down the line. Positioning is the very, very first thing. It's the foundation story, and people
mhm,
often don't take the time to get that all the way right. They just kind of assume that people must know who they are and why anyone would care. But people don't. And as I'm constantly telling my clients, if you don't define the story of who you are and why anyone should care, people are going to misunderstand you in ways you could never imagine. And so, one case study that I think about with this, someone who had excellent positioning was a law firm that I helped launch called Merriweather Law, and we went back and forth for a long time to be like, "Okay, how do we describe these people?" Because they work in estate law, so it's this very straight-laced, industry. No one is,
Mhm.
like, wanting somebody really crazy to do their will or to set up a trust for them. But the founder herself was pretty disruptive because she was bringing a lot of technology, into the field where people don't normally use it. And so we eventually came up with the positioning statement, of her being the gentle disruptor. And that was
Mm.
just the perfect description because as soon as you hear that, like, "Oh, I feel like I know this person and I know whether they're for me or not." And that's what a positioning statement is. It's very short, it's very, um, nutritionally dense is the word that's coming to mind. That's probably not the right word, but, like, it says a lot in a few words, and
Is it like an elevator pitch? Like an elevator pitch?
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
exactly, but even shorter. So, for instance, my positioning statement is, "I make words make money,"
Mhm.
and that's what I do. I'm trying to think of another example. So I do a, co-offer with a branding strategist friend of mine, and we are the trusted brand smiths. And so again, it's sort of this flag planting in the ground of this is who I am, this is who you will always get when you speak to me, and you can immediately know whether you probably want to keep talking to me or whether I'm not the right person for you.
Mm. Mm. Interesting.
Yeah.
And often, especially I have seen like there's an obsession around websites, funnels, and logos. But I think this is positioning something that kind of gets skipped over.
Yeah.
Rachel, is this a part of the GTM that often we get to hear from founders like this is my go-to-market strategy, this is this is that. Is it a part of that, or is it completely different, like the first by default step to begin with?
Yeah, I think it has to come before that because if you don't know who you are, then what you're doing really doesn't matter. And so you
Right.
have to figure out how to say, this is who I am. And this is who I will always be because that consistency is so important for the foundation of the brand. And then everything else stems from that because it even influences your GTM, it influences your strategy, it influences your marketing strategy. Um, with my positioning of I make words make money, that's what I talk about. I focus on that as my primary benefit that I bring to people. I've also worked with other clients where their positioning statements are much more transactional. And so that informs the way that we plan their social media marketing. That informs what goes on their website. It's really the foundation stone of everything. And people always have one, even if it's not articulated. But if you don't articulate it, then of course people start trying to like put their own words on it and make up weird stories about what you do. And that's when you get like tire kickers and internet randoms being like, hey, can you help me with blah, blah? And you're like, why would you even think I could help you with blah, blah? Of course not.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Awesome. Awesome. And Rachel, so a lot of entrepreneurs will think that okay, fine, but will is positioning going to uh, uh make my product or service too specific? Like will it be limiting my opportunities? I mean, how do you address this fear of niching down?
So, the first thing I do is to remind people that niching down is not a bad thing necessarily,
Okay.
but I do recommend that unless you were doing something very specific, so unless you, for instance, have created like a kitchen tool that does one thing, right? Like that, you want the niche to be I work with people who really don't want to peel garlic for themselves, right? That's easy. But,
Mhm.
if you're doing something that's more service-based or if you have a large suite of offerings, that's when you need the niche to be something more psychological. And so that way so in my case, right, I make words make money. I can do that with anybody. I have done that with anybody. I'm industry agnostic. I've worked with people all over the world. And so in committing to this one small area, that actually opens up much more possibility for me. So that's what I would tell people is it's not about limiting your options by saying like, we all see like, I'm a coach for dog walkers. No, right? Like that's not a positioning. That's a weird niche that you're artificially limiting yourself. But if you can find that through line, if you can find that higher level thing and commit to that, it actually opens you up to so many more niches.
Hmm. Interesting. Because the clarity sounds liberating, but for many people, it would feel like, yeah, maybe we are cutting off revenue streams.
Yeah.
But I think yes, that fear is also justified. It
Yeah.
is justified.
Yeah. And I mean, I think and people say this all the time and it is scary, but if you try to appeal to everyone, you're not going to appeal to anyone. And so I think one of the benefits of this is in getting that level of clarity, you can then have multiple offers and multiple things. I have 4 revenue streams right now, functionally 4 businesses, and each one of them has different positioning.
Yeah, proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, and um, I just bring in a bit of nuance here, because we are living in an era of fast, rapid launches,
Mm.
then pivoting. Does just deep positioning slow that down too much, or can it coexist with a fast-moving business model?
I think it actually can, and I so appreciate you asking that because I haven't really thought about articulating this before, but yeah, I think it
Mm,
can
yeah.
because it's not about, this is the only thing we do. It's about this is who we are, and then I may do many different things. So my own, to take myself for an example, I used to run an agency model, and then I decided I didn't enjoy that, and so I scaled back, and now I just do one-to-one with myself. And that
Mm,
doesn't change, I'm still the positioning's still the same, business is still the same. It's just something different that we're doing. Similarly, I have a service that I do for clients where I'll ghostwrite business books for them if they ask me. And I don't advertise that, because I don't wanna do it for everybody. But
okay.
that's definitely in line with, still with the positioning, and it's a completely different offer. So, looking back to, like, startups that I've worked with, businesses that are just starting out, businesses that maybe start and then they're like, "Oh, you know what? Actually, I hate this. Let's do something different." Unless you are just, like, way off with that identity in the beginning, it can
Mhm.
absolutely coexist with different iterations of whatever it is you're doing.
Wow, that's really cool, Rachel.
I
Really
know,
cool.
it's really fun.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. And um, hmm, have there been any exceptions, like in where positioning, or let me reframe this question, like, where, let's say the entrepreneur says that my product speaks for itself. I mean, it's like it's. I mean, I don't need to even position it. It will speak
Mm.
for itself. Has there been any cases that you have encountered?
I mean, you can really hope that it will. And
Okay.
again, maybe if you have something that is just so specific. So I think about like in I keep going back to kitchen things. I have like a lemon
Mhm.
squeezer in my kitchen because I like getting the juice out. And so it's like I can look at a lemon squeezer and be like, yeah, I don't need a whole lot of storytelling around that. I understand what that does. I understand who it's for. Um
Mhm.
but I'm trying to think. I mean, I think anything that is even remotely service based, anything that's even like software as a service,
Mhm.
yeah, I can't think of anything other than a product that is just so clearly designed for one thing that positioning wouldn't help. And even then, I mean, you just cannot underestimate how wildly people will misunderstand what it is you do. I constantly have people asking me if I do copyright law because copywriter sounds like copyright, like intellectual property, and I'm like, I no, I cannot assist you with that. I am not an attorney. So people will just not through no fault of their own wildly misunderstand you, and it's much better to have a clear story of this is who I am and this is why you care than to leave that up to chance.
Mm, mm. And I also believe that even if, let's say, as you gave those examples, what I'm wondering is even if uh, at an Uber level, if we think about any category or industry where it's already like very specifically designed for a very specific purpose,
Mhm.
there will be competition. There will be a lot of companies, brands playing in there. Then
Yeah.
also you need some kind of positioning to at least, spread that awareness that yes, my product exists, my service exists in there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've worked with, like, for instance, engineering firms and, people who sell really just incredibly boring items. And even then, where they're never doing any marketing, it's completely B2B. They don't even have a website sometimes. You still
Mhm.
need to know if you're the person selling, I don't know, steel rods or whatever, people need to know why your steel rods are better than the person next door's steel rods, because otherwise you just get into a price war and nobody wins those.
Yeah, true. That is true. Superb, superb, Rachel. So if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what will be the easiest way?
I am all over the internet. You can find me at boltfromthebluecopywriting.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn as Rachel Allen. That's RachelAllen. There is a Bolt from the Blue Substack and Instagram if you happen to enjoy those places. And you can also just email me like it is the ancient times at hello@boltfromthebluecopywriting.com and I will email you back.
Super, super. I'll have all the links and details in the show notes. And Rachel, what a conversation! Because uh, I believe on BizBlend, I don't even remember when I have had the last discussion on positioning. I mean, I've had conversations on storytelling, personal branding, branding in general. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think this is something that is overlooked, but it is so, so crucial. It isn't just a marketing exercise, it is the way you tell the world who you are, why do you matter, and why your offer is the obvious one. So, thank you so much for bringing this into the limelight.
Oh, thank you for letting me talk about one of my favorite things ever. This has been so much fun.
Yeah. So, to all the listeners, let me just quickly summarize for all of you. So, the takeaway today is simple: stop building your brand around an imaginary friend and start anchoring it in the reality of the people you can truly help. That's where the clarity, confidence, and conversions live. With this, I conclude this episode of This Blend. To connect with Rachel, just refer to the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. Until then, this is a host Sana signing off from This Blend. Thank you.